ముందుగా ప్రియమైన విద్యార్థులకు మరియు వారి తల్లిదండ్రులకు నమస్కారం. నా పేరు కె వెంకన్న జూనియర్ కాలేజ్ చైర్మన్. నేను ఈ రోజు 10th క్లాస్ విద్యార్థులను దృష్టిలో పెట్టుకొని మాట్లాడడం జరుగుతుంది. అది ఏమిటనగా, మనందరికీ తెలుసు, గత 2 సంవత్సరాలుగా కరోనా కారణంగా విద్యార్థులు ఎటువంటి పరీక్షలు రాయకుండానే పై తరగతులు పంపడం జరుగుతుంది. ఫలితంగా ఐఐటి జేఈ మరియు నీట్ లాంటి జాతీయ స్థాయి పరీక్షలను సాధించడం కష్టతరం అవుతుంది. దీనిని అధిగమించడానికి మరియు 10వ తరగతి పరీక్షలో అత్యధిక మార్కులు సాధించడానికి నేను మీ ముందుకు కె వెంకన్న జూనియర్ కాలేజ్ ప్లాట్ఫామ్ ద్వారా అనుభవజ్ఞులైన అధ్యాపకులచే ఉచిత వీడియో క్లాసులు, హ్యాండ్ రిటన్ నోట్స్ మరియు గత ప్రశ్నపత్రాల సమాధానాల విశ్లేషణ ఇవ్వబడును. కాబట్టి నేను విద్యార్థులకు చెప్పదలుచుకున్నది ఏంటంటే, ఈ ఉచిత వీడియో క్లాసులను మరియు హ్యాండ్ రిటన్ నోట్స్లను క్లాస్ రూమ్ లో కూర్చొని చదువుకున్నంత సీరియస్ చదువుకోవాలను. ఇంకొకటి ఏమిటనగా, ఈ యొక్క క్లాసులు విన్న వెంటనే అర్థం చేసుకొని ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయవలను. ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయడం అంటే కేవలం చదవడం కాదు, పేపర్ మీద రాయవలను. అలాగైతే గుర్తుండిపోతుంది. దీంతో పాటు మీ యొక్క నాలెడ్జ్ ని పరీక్షించుకున్న కొరకు త్వరలో ప్రీ ఫైనల్ పరీక్షలు కూడా నిర్వహించబడు. ఈ యొక్క అవకాశాన్ని సద్వినియోగం చేసుకోవాలని 10th చదివే విద్యార్థులకు విజ్ఞప్తి చేస్తున్నాను.
A multinational company is a company that owns or controls the production in more than one nation. They don't restrict themselves only to one country but multi. What does it? The name itself is multi, means what? More. So they have their production where the control is there, not more than one nation. You call it as a multinational companies. Okay. And now let's understand how they function. How do our multinational companies function? What is their strategy? What is their blueprint? How do they function? We need to understand these multinational companies, because right now India has so many multinational companies, and let us understand that how do they function. Multinational companies, how do they function? Let's understand in depth. Okay students, again all these things are being taught to you keeping in the board examination point of view. I am not going textbook point by point because of the lack of the time right now we are having for the board examinations. We are giving a skeletal structure of all the lesson of the globalization. If you strictly follow what is being taught or what is being said in these videos, follow strictly, believe me, you cover whole of the lesson and all the important questions which come across, all the questions which are being answered from the globalization, you will be in a position to answer every single question. Okay, now let's come back to the MNCs and understand how they function. We need to understand how they function. How do they function? By setting up new factories units. What do? They invest and they select an area, they select a country, a place, and they set up their own factories and units in a particular country. Okay, and acquire local units of the domestic nations. What do? Initially they set up and acquire these local units of the domestic nations. They acquire the local units of the domestic nations, setting up partnership. What do apart from that? Because directly we cannot allow the foreign company come and invest them directly. So what happens? Indian people, some of our country people will have a partnership with the foreign countries. Obviously they first, what is that they do? First thing is, what they do? They by setting up new factories and units, and they acquire local units of the domestic market. And what do? They set up partnership with our own country people. They have a partnership, like percentage of the partnership they have. Okay, and after that, technically, financially, marketing wise, what not, everywhere they have a proper planning and they just come down. I'll tell you an example of Ford. So many of you must have seen the Ford cars. Ford is nothing but a company of USA. So Ford, what does they do? Ford pick up all the material required from the China, all the raw material from the China, and send back to Mexico for assembling all of them. So what is USA doing? Ford is a United States of American company. It's an automobile industry. What are they doing? Here, for you to understand the functioning of the MNC, I am quoting you an example. Right students, you are getting it? Listen very carefully. The Ford, the company, the automobile industry, one of the biggest companies is United States of America, USA company. So what do? They go from China, they pick up all the raw materials required and send them back to the Mexico for assembling all of them. There the cars are being ready and they send to the cars which are being ready, they are being sent to the global market, different parts of the country. And when it comes to the India, what do? They pitch in India because Indians are very good, honest, and they're really fluent in their English. So 24/7, 365 days, when the market is already happening there, the manufacture is already happening there, the people in the India are they pitch the market through Indians, through 24/7, 365 days, they have a proper marketing strategy and all. By the time the car is ready into the Indian market, our own Indian people have done the marketing, they have pitched the market, and the Ford car is being launched in our country. Not only in our country, at different timings, different parts of all the globally, all the Ford cars are being launched. This is how the MNCs work. See, MNC is the Ford automobile industry, the MNC is a USA company, getting the picking up all the raw materials from the China and sending them all for assembling into Mexico, and from there the whole part of the car is being sent to all parts of the globe. So this is how MNCs function. I think you are getting it very clear, students. Because of this example, whenever this question is being asked, what is an MNC, how do they function, you should be in a position to remember all these points. First, define what is an MNC, and then tell what is their way of functioning. Point by point, you will tell them how do they function and understand their function. They set up and acquire, and after that, first thing is they set up, they acquire, they go into the partnerships, and what do they technically, financially, marketing wise, they crack the market with a proper way. And the example of the Ford of the automobile industry is the biggest example where you can always remember that example and write the answer of these MNCs. From the examination point of view, multinational companies, MNCs is a very, very important question from the examination point of view. You should remember this question very importantly. This question might come for you as an 4 marks question, or even sometimes as well as a 2 marks question. Okay, students? Now after that, let's come factors that help to globalization. We understood how globalization, what is the meaning of globalization, because of globalization what happened, and because of the trade, what happens, and when people are investing in our country, what is it called as, we said we decided and discussed that as a multinational companies, and we have studied with the quoting within one example as well. Now next, coming back to what are the factors that help to globalization. What are the factors that really helped globalization? There are certain points which really helped globalization. Globalization was success, a huge success, because of certain, the most important aspects of the globalization are as follows. Whenever we are talking about the globalization, this is as well a very important question from the examination point of view, from the board examination point of view. They might ask you the question, what are the factors that help the globalization? So you should be able to understand every single point and give them a tagline, a side heading, and start elaborating your points. Now let's do that now. The first thing is interconnects markets, and what does the two? It connects markets, international markets are being connected, and countries also. What does it do? Globalization always it interconnects the markets as well as the countries also. The most important point, the factor that helped globalization is it interconnects markets as well as countries. Globalization, this is what globalization does. And what are the factors which paved way to the globalization? Now let's come and explore. The first point being the technology. I'll tell you what are the points. The technology, the transportation, liberalization of foreign trade, liberalization of foreign investment, and all these other points. So key nutshell, apparently what are the most important points which paved, which really helped for the development of, what are the factors that really helped for the globalization are technology, transport, liberalization of foreign trade, liberalization of foreign investment. If you remember these 4 points, you can elaborate them and write them in your 4-mark answer as well as the 2 marks answer. Now coming back to your technology, what happened in technology? Rapid development in technology is one of the major factors. technology has developed so much that communication, your everything has developed so much that because of the technology, a person sitting at one nook corner of the world can understand what's really happening at the other nook and corner of the world. So this is how the technology has creeped up so fastly, and because of this technology has grown so fastly, it gave lot of space and lot of scope for the globalization. Okay. And now the next thing is transportation. Obviously, what do you remember transportation? Sitting in one place and moving to another place. It's transportation as well, but when it comes to the globalization, sitting in one place in a minute, what do you want to convey here from here to other part of the globe? I am not talking about the country, students. Other part of the globe, you can convey that in couple of minutes. Yes, that was possible by the invention of the internet. Internet is a way where we all are able to connect to the people very fastly, tell them, update them what is the status of the production, tell them what is the status of the industries, tell them what is the state of all the factories, and everything we are able to convey. Isn't it very fastly? Aren't we transporting? And obviously because of the airways and different ways of transportation as well, it's cropped up. But here when we are talking about globalization, what does transportation really mean to us is internet. Because sitting here we are able to connect, sitting in India we are able to connect any time globally, any country. Isn't it amazing and beautiful? So obviously internet, I'll tell you, internet has paved way to pass the information at a very minimal cost. Is it really expensive? Absolutely not. Initial good olden days, we had phone. When we had to call other people intercity, only we had to book an STD, it was called as a trunk call. After if you want to talk about the international countries, we had to book an international call. But this is nothing like, there is no booking the calls and all. Because of the internet, things have become so easy to us. Everything is in our hands right now. So don't you think all these things as well paved a way to the globalization, students? Absolutely true. Even the transportation in globalization is none other than the internet, and it is very minimal cost. The transportation costs are very, very minimal. And now coming back, liberalization of the foreign trade. And one more thing, when you are talking about the transportation, goods are being delivered very fastly within no time. Because when the goods are being manufactured, what is the state of the goods are in the first phase, second phase, third phase, everything sitting in one place, we are able to update to the people sitting in other countries. That's how MNCs function. That is the beauty of globalization, right students?
Hello students, myself is Sanjay Kumar Singh and I did my B from Birla Institute of Technology, Misra, and I am having 18 years experience of teaching. Now I am associated with KBC classes. Now here the advantage which you people are going to get, that there is a technical pool of faculty, mostly from IITs. So this is one of the biggest enabler for achieving your success. The second best thing is that doubt classes and all, they are conducted in the presence of faculties. So third is that your entire curriculum, timing of teachings, all is being monitored by ITMs and NITMs. So come here and join us.
And now liberalization of foreign trade. What is liberalization of foreign trade? And what do you mean by liberalization? Firstly, understand what is liberalization. Removing barriers and restrictions. Removing barriers and restrictions by a government is called as liberalization. I repeat my words, removing barriers and restrictions by a government on the trade is called as liberalization. Okay. And now liberalization of foreign trade. Initially the foreign trade, the rules and regulations were very stringent, very stringent. In the initial good olden days when we got the independence and all, the rules and regulations were very stringent. But later things became a bit liberal, and obviously because of the liberalization of the foreign trade, even we could get even more scope. That paved liberalization of the foreign trade also paid the more scope for this globalization. See, that's what I have written here. scope to make decisions freely regarding imports and exports. What is import? What is export? Don't say these two are opposites. Import is something where you get out from other country, we are getting to our own country, we call it as an import. Sending from our country to other country, you call it as an export. Obviously, you know, when because of the liberalization of foreign trade, any person in an MNC could take the decisions very fastly based on their imports and exports. The government has given that freedom, the government has given that space to all these, you know, industrialists, all these industrialists of the country. Because of this liberalization of foreign trade, they gave a space, they gave an opportunity wherein they can decide very fastly what to be imported and what to be exported. And this is also one of the very important factor which helped the globalization. And now coming next, foreign investment. What is investment? Somebody coming and somebody coming and putting money in a company is called as huge money, is called a huge capital, is called as investment. And what is foreign investment? Foreign, other country. People coming from other country and investing in our country is called as foreign investment. Due to liberalization, many companies are investing. Because of this liberalization of foreign trade as well as investment, the rules became very flexible and very friendly. The Indian government has made. So because of this, what happens? There is so much of inflow. We studied in the introduction of the globalization, right? There is the inflow of the capital. So the investment also hugely mounted in our country. Okay? Indian government, what happened? After independence, Indian government put so many barriers on its own people in the production and all, because they wanted to reduce the competition between the product producers of their own company. They wanted to protect them. So obviously the initial stages, when we got the independence, the post-independence period immediately, so obviously the liberalized, the foreign trade policies and the foreign investment policies were not really proper and were not friendly. Probably as the years kept on passing, Indian government realized it. Probably in the year 1991, Indian government realized that this is the time wherein we will have to liberate. We will have to be a bit liberal in the foreign trade policies as well as the foreign investments policies. And then the factors of globalization, even India could start seeing that. Even India could experience the liberalization. What are the factors that really paved a way to the globalization? Okay? And now coming to the next content of this lesson is WTO. Have you ever heard this word WTO? And what is WTO? Nothing but than World Trade Organization. WTO is nothing but than World Trade Organization. Okay, and what is World Trade Organization? It's an institution which globally governs. It's an institution which really emphasizes on the global governance. And what is it? Why is there a necessity for any organization to focus on the global governance? What do you mean by global governance? A body, an organization or any institution which is monitoring majority of the countries globally. That job is called as a global governance. And why is the WTO doing this global governance, and what was the necessity for WTO to do the global governance? Let us understand this. Many decisions on the key issues, focus on this point, these words very well and mark these words. Many decisions on key issues that affect large parts of the world are taken by global governance. What are we saying here? Many decisions, important decisions which will affect globally all the countries, that affect large parts of the world, are taken by global governance. There is an organization which will work for the betterment of whole of the globe. That institution is called as the World Trade Organization, because we are talking here about the trade, right? So obviously WTO is nothing but the World Trade Organization, which is working as an institution, which is working as an, which is taking the role of the global governance. Okay, students? And for example, what is it? Industries with, why is that WTO had to interfere? For example, industries with carbon emission. Whenever the industries are being established, when the industries, because of the industrialization, industrial revolution, what is the worst effect we have? Carbon emission from the industries. And carbon emission is not at all advisable because it leads to global warming, right? So obviously, you know, if there is no body which should really monitor all the industries of all the countries globally. A country with with ease and all, the country will go to other country which has very minimal amount of restrictions, and there is carbon emission more which will happen into the country and which will lead to the global warming. So there should be some hard and fast rules, or there should be an organization, there should be an institution which should really control and have a global governance of all the countries about the trade, and that's what WTO takes a role of the global governance here. Okay, global governance here. And what is the main aim of WTO? The World Trade Organization aims to liberalize international trade. It does not want any single country to prosper. It wants all the countries, internationally all the countries, to liberalize, come out of it and do the trade in a proper way and exchange the technology, the cultures and the ideology. This is what the WTO aims at, and establishes rules regarding international trade, and it establishes the rules regarding the international trade and sees to it that all the countries strictly abide to the rules of the WTO, the World Trade Organization. Okay. And how many countries are a part of this WTO? Almost 150 countries globally are a part of World Trade Organization. Okay, and now this is all about your global WTO and global governance, we understood. Even this also might come as a short answer. In the board exams, they can ask you to write briefly about the World Trade Organization and its global governance. There is what is the organization which is working as a global governance. Don't get confused.